Okay, today on this episode, we have Trevor Orme with Necessary Legal. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let's go ahead and get going here. I have Trevor with Necessary Legal. How you doing, Trevor?
I'm doing well. I'm still rocking out to that.
That's a pretty nice intro, huh? Me and Trevor actually go way back. We're actually old high school buddies. I'm a little older though, but we were just talking a little bit about that. But yeah. So what's been kind of going on since high school, man?
Well, lots happened. We went to high school a long time ago, it feels like.
Yeah.
And when you said a little older than me, let's emphasize the little. You're not that much older than me, Mike. Well, geez, since high school, I completed my undergraduate degree. I did a service mission for my church in Italy.
Oh, that's cool.
Which was a great time of my life. And since then, I've also obviously completed my law degree. I have been married now for come 10 years in April, and we have 3 daughters, ages almost 6, 4, and then one who is just over a year now.
Wow.
And we were talking how you have 4 boys, so
yeah. So you gotta get one more.
If I have another girl, then we'll have a perfect family there. Just marry them all off.
Yeah. My boys are 8, 7, and 4 in now 4 weeks. So,
congratulations to you. It's pretty amazing to bring babies into this world, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, I can't believe everyone comes here that way.
I know. Yep. I've loved being a part of every one of my kids' births. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so how's your family doing?
You know, we're doing good. We were just talking before. It's hard to talk about that question given the current state of things. I dared you not to talk about the coronavirus, but I will.
See how I made you do it instead? So now
yeah, you made me do it, so I lost that one. Good thing we didn't make a bet. But, you know, we're doing pretty good. I have to count my blessings for what this time has brought for us. It's been a time to kind of take a step back, realize what's important. We've done a whole lot of things that I don't think we would have otherwise done. Like we've set up a tent in the backyard and slept out there a number of nights.
Oh man,
we would never have done that had my oldest still been going to school. You know.
Yeah, we've done that before. What was your experience with that?
Well, given the fact that I put a real nice, like 5-inch thick pad in there, I was fine with it. So
it's so noisy. It's so noisy out here.
You know, it kind of is, but where we're at, it's not too bad. It's quiet enough. The problem is we live next to a street light, and so that's the problem. Is there's a street light that shines into our backyard pretty brightly.
Oh yeah. But
my oldest daughter offered me her unicorn eye mask, but I turned that one down. But no, I mean, on balance, this is as crazy as of a time as this is, and as much as I dread going to the supermarket, it's been pretty refreshing, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
not
cool.
to make light of the situation, because I think it should be taken pretty seriously, but I've quite enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting having all the kids home and trying to come up with ways for them to stay productive.
Right. Yeah, you're forced to get creative, and what I found when I'm creative, I'm most happy. So we're trying to be really creative, and when you tap into that creative side of you, things start to just feel right. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So you served a mission in Italy. Do you keep up with your Italian?
Nowhere near as I should. I've been back several times since, and every time I go back, I'm always embarrassed for the first couple days.
Oh yeah,
but
I think it comes back to you.
But after that, it comes back pretty quick. Yeah, but I remember, you know, there was a time when I could carry on 2 conversations at the same time.
Wow.
I remember one in particular. My father came over and visited me at the end of my 2 years there. And obviously he doesn't speak Italian, but we would meet with some of the families with whom I, had come to love and spend time with. And obviously they're talking to him as if he understands Italian. He doesn't. So I'd be talking to somebody else, but I would listen to the conversation he was having. And I could not only carry on a conversation with the person I was talking to, but as soon as the person was done talking to him, I could quickly turn to him and say, he's asking you, whatever.
Oh, wow.
He would tell me what he would want to say. I could tell him so they could continue their conversation, all the while maintaining this conversation over here. So I couldn't do that now for sure. But that was the height of my Italian back in the day.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. I've
resorted to old American Italian songs to sing to my girls at bed. So we sing O Sole Mio, we sing That's Amore, we sing Volare, we sing all of the classic Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra songs that they made classic that are kind of half Italian, half American.
That's so funny.
That's where my Italian lives right now.
Oh man, that is so funny. That is pretty crazy. Well, I served Spanish, and so it's been easier for me to keep my Spanish just because Arizona we speak it more. But but it's more of like, because we're next to Mexico, it's more of the Mexican dialects and stuff like that I hear most. And I try to keep it kind of neutral, just because in San Francisco where I served, a lot of people had mixed feelings towards Mexico, especially if they were from like Spain. They always had like this pride of like, no, I don't speak Mexican. I speak the real Spanish. I speak Castilian or whatever. And Mexico, Mexicans were the same way. I don't speak Spanish. I speak Mexican, and all that stuff.
Everybody has pride in their own dialect of the language.
Yeah, and they're all different and unique. It's pretty interesting. San Francisco was unique because it's such a melting pot of so many different countries and cultures and all that kind of stuff. So we learned every dialect. So I could talk to somebody within 2 minutes and can tell what region from Guatemala they're from.
Isn't that so cool? I spent most of my time, for example, in Naples, and they speak an entirely different language.
Wow.
The Italian that most Americans actually are familiar with, because that's where a lot of the art and the very colorful Italian language comes from. But that's exactly right. In fact, one of my favorite examples is in Italian, to say I have a headache, very similar to Spanish actually. You say my head makes mad, basically makes bad. Mm-hmm. And you would say, oh, I have una mala di testa. I have a bad head. That's Italian, right?
Interesting.
But in what we would call Napoletano, you would say ma fa male a capo, which is totally different. Ma fa male a capo.
That's not even close.
Right?
Not even close.
Not even close. Not even close. So, it's funny because at its heaviest, there was a gentleman who worked at a local bar when I would go and get just a delicious white chocolate filled donut. To this day, wow. I don't remember understanding a single word that came out of that guy's mouth. But we had a wonderful time, just basically making hand gestures and noise at each other and eating my donut. But honestly, his name was Franco, and he spoke with such a heavy, deep, hard to understand accent and dialect that I honestly couldn't say I know anything he said to me to this day.
Wow. Yeah. I think we all have experiences like that.
Right.
There was a part of my mission I started learning Portuguese because the part we were in Half Moon Bay, California, and in there's a lot of Portuguese speaking. So I started learning Portuguese, but then I ran into someone from Portugal and not Brazil, and I could not understand a word. Even with my Spanish and Portuguese are so close, we could actually I could talk to someone in Spanish, they talk back to me in Portuguese, and we could understand each other. That's how close they are. But continental Portuguese, absolutely not. I was like a deer in the headlights. Could not understand a word. And that was like at the end of my mission, so I was like good at Spanish.
In my work here, I don't speak Spanish, but I understand it, well enough that I can work with those who speak Spanish, and I can communicate back with them well enough that it works well. But yeah, I understand most Spanish, which is which is really neat. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Italian. I think I tried to learn Italian, and it's a lot more advanced for me to learn than
It's a little
Spanish
bit
and for
more.
sure.
It's a little bit more precise
Yeah,
as in the pronunciation and in the grammar.
yeah. It's definitely
But
tougher.
yeah,
Yeah. So something I use. Do you ever hear of Duolingo?
sure.
Yeah, that has saved me a lot.
Yeah, I've never used it, but I've heard good things about it.
Oh yeah, 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, it'll come back to you real quick. It'll come back to you,
Cool.
especially when you start getting into the advanced parts of it. They have like these little stories, and at first it's kind of like you see like one-liner sentences, and that's all good. But then when you get towards the advanced stories, they're having full stories in that language, and you're having to write back in Spanish and talk back in Spanish and all that kind of, well, in Italian, I guess in your case,
Sure.
but it's definitely really
I'll have
good.
I'll have to squeeze that in between 4:30 and 4:45 in the morning, right before I. You know how it is with families. There's no other time to get anything done.
Oh, I know. I know. That's exactly when I do it. Is I get up and I do my morning routine. That's definitely a part of it. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
sometimes it even gets skipped, and I have to do it at 11:30 at night before I go to bed,
Right.
or else I get
As you're
dinged.
as you're taping your eyeballs open because you're so
I
tired.
know. And now I gotta speak and understand a different language. Sometimes I'm just tired of it, and I'll just like
Right.
you get like these little coins and stuff, and I'll just pay the coins, to like skip a day and keep my
Oh, is that
streak.
what you
Yeah,
have to do?
yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
Like here, just take 200
Is
coins.
that the incent? Is that how they incentivize you? Is they make you pay if you want to skip a day or something?
No, it's not like a payment. I mean, I pay for the pro version once a
Uh-huh.
year. It's like $80 a year or something like that for the pro version, and you get a bunch of stuff. They give you like medallions though for achieving certain things, like leaderboards and
So
how long you've done
kind
it.
of like a game. Kind
It's
of like a game.
kind of like a game, kind of. And you can compete with your friends that are on it, like my father-in-law and my mother-in-law. They're learning French. He speaks Japanese, and so he does Japanese, French, and my
Really?
mother-in-law is trying to do Spanish. But we'll compete on how many experience points we can get throughout the week or the month or something like that. But
Well, I'm super competitive, so maybe I
uh,
shouldn't do that.
yeah, you can get pretty angry. It will destroy family
Uh,
ties. Right on. So after your mission, you got your undergrad. What'd you get your undergrad in?
I did my undergraduate in business management,
Oh, hey, me
and at the
too.
time they afforded you also an emphasis, and my emphasis was in organizational behavior. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
and then I minored in Italian.
Of
Yeah,
course.
which was super easy. I think I took a test and took like 2 classes, and that's all it required. Because I passed out of all of
That time,
the lower level courses, having
right,
already spoken the language. It was just a test. So
right.
anyway,
Did you get like a
yeah,
six? Was it with that course that you can get like 16 credits for testing out?
yep,
Oh, wow,
yep,
that's really
that's right.
cool. That is really
Yep.
cool. I probably couldn't have done that.
So before I tout myself as an Italian minor, make sure everyone knows it was basically a test.
Well, 2 years in
Unless you
immersion.
want to consider the 2 years of speaking Italian, what it required, then
Hey,
in that case, that
yeah.
minor was well earned. Was well earned.
Yeah, if you know it, you know it. You don't have to go
Right.
through the mundane classes to prove that you know it every single day.
Exactly.
Awesome. So then you went into law school.
Went to law school, so we came back to Arizona, where we grew up,
Yeah.
and I went to ASU Law School. Um, and yeah, now I'm practicing law and really enjoying it. Yeah.
Awesome. So tell me
And
about your.
I never, ever, ever in a million years thought I would practice the type of law that I'm practicing. Because we all know what people think about, personal injury lawyers. But I will tell you, I've done other types of law, and I still do. But this is by far my favorite. It's the most rewarding and where I feel like I do most good. Yeah.
So what kind of other law have you done?
So I've done commercial transaction and some commercial litigation. I've dabbled in a little bit of estate planning, but primarily vast majority of what I do is personal injury. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about. I know I deal a lot with estate planning lawyers right now also, and some of them have dabbed into litigation. They all hated litigation. But
Yeah. Well, and litigation is a big word that means a lot of things.
yeah.
So, I mean, as soon as somebody files a lawsuit, it's technically considered litigation.
Mm.
Um, but those who actually try cases is a whole different story. And to try a personal injury case versus to try a family law case, they're all different bears. No more or less difficult. They're all hard.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, litigation is only challenging because there's just a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
A lot. And we could spend a whole, hour talking about and just scratching the surface of what that includes. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a bear that a lot of attorneys don't really want to tackle. Yeah,
Yeah. That's probably why they get paid pretty well too, if you're good
it's
at it.
true.
But you
Yeah,
get paid pretty well
if
if you're
if
good at
if
anything.
you'll do it and you're good at it,
Yep.
then you're rewarded accordingly. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Absolutely. So what made you kind of go into accident and injury law?
Well, I my very first case that was an injury case, I represented a young family, a mom and a dad and two kids, and they went through an intersection and were T-boned by a drunk driver who also ran a red light,
Oh,
and it killed mom instantly,
wow.
and both of the kids were in car seats, so they were injured, but not to the extent that you might imagine. So they were doing okay. But dad suffered some injuries that left him in a halo brace and paralyzed. A halo brace is what they have to put
Right.
around your head, basically, and affix your head to your
Oh,
shoulders.
yeah.
That left him paralyzed for several months,
Wow.
and
Jeez Louise.
he finally came to after lots of therapy, and he's still not the way
100%.
he was.
Right.
But having worked through that case and really seen the pains and the struggles of dealing not only with a death, the mom, but the injuries associated with the dad, it wasn't by any means like a beautiful scenario. It was awful. It was terrible. It was tragic.
Right.
But to be the person that could kind of help them through it, and make it as right as it could be, felt really good. Yeah. So from that point forward, it was almost like I'd kind of found my place.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Found the
Yeah.
calling.
And since then, Mike, I could tell you story after story after story of
Injury cases.
of cases like that you just feel good about. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had someone by our house actually. She was riding her bike and was ran over by somebody. The bike. It's been like maybe 2 years since that happened, but they still have that white bicycle at that intersection. And she left behind like 4 boys and her husband from it.
Oh my God.
So yeah, there's a ton of stories like that, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're all tragic, and unfortunately, the only way that we've really, figured out to make things right, best we can, is with money. So, I mean, there's other things you can, other things, but in large measure, the resulting reward, I don't know, it's not necessarily a reward, but the end result is money.
Right.
And like I said, it never satisfies what's taken from you, but that's really the only thing we're kind of left with. So at the very least, it can kind of make life a little bit more comfortable as you're dealing with whatever it is that's needing to be dealt with.
Well, yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you have to pay for therapy, you have to pay for rehab, you have to pay for a whole bunch of stuff. There's so much that goes into that, and nothing is really free just because you were in an accident.
that's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. So I really enjoy what I do, and I hope and I believe my clients feel that. Yeah.
Well, good,
Yeah.
good. So how long have you actually owned your business or ran your business then?
So I've been practicing law since 2015, really.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that might make you think that I'm a young, inexperienced attorney, but in reality, once you get the ropes and you learn how it works, they say that experience is the most important thing. So, with my practice, I've run the gamut of smaller cases to gigantic cases.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've represented several wrongful death beneficiaries, people whose loved ones have died as the result of an accident.
Wow.
Um, and once you've done one, you kind of know how it works.
Yeah.
So in large measure, I feel as well prepared and familiar with how these cases run as even somebody who might have been doing it for several more years. But yeah, so I've been practicing since 2015.
Okay. All right. And that's when you started Necessary Legal?
So Necessary Legal is the byproduct of my wanting to make available to others one thing in particular, and that is I've found these bigger cases where somebody is incapacitated or has died, and they leave their family with no way to know what to do for them financially or medically.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to make a platform available for people to get some of the very basic estate plan in place to make that easier. So on necessarylegal.com,
Right.
if anybody navigates to free injury documents, they will find
Right here.
that with answering five very simple questions, I will send to them for free, no charge, 3 very important injury documents: a living will, which basically says if I am ever incapacitated, I want you or don't want you to do these certain things, right?
Right.
The second is a financial power of attorney, which gives someone the ability to make financial decisions for you. And the third is a medical power of attorney, which affords somebody the opportunity and the ability to make medical decisions for you, often governed by that living will we talked about. But with those 3 things, it would save a lot of families a lot of heartache when they're trying to figure out, how they're going to pay for the mortgage when, dad or mom always did that, but that they don't know how to do it. And they don't have permission to access the account from which, they pay the mortgage, things like that.
Right.
And when somebody's incapacitated and can't, help you do that, it prevents it's a big challenge.
Right.
So I encourage anybody to go onto the website, navigate to free injury documents, and they'll find it very simply there. Fill them out, send me an email address so I can then forward to you those injury documents, and then instructions as to how to make them official, because some require a notary, for example, but it's all very self-explanatory and shouldn't take you more than maybe 5 minutes. Yeah.
Right. It looks pretty simple. I have it pulled up right now on the video.
Sure.
If people are watching, but yeah, it looks like pretty simple, medical, financial, and living. And I guess the living will actually was probably in the state of Arizona. I know they're trying to pass some remote notary laws where they can try to get it notarized electronically, which I don't understand fully myself yet. But
yeah. In fact, it's, we've already kind of moved towards like DocuSign, which allows you to sign things electronically. Now we're trying to make it such that you can get something notarized electronically, which would save people a lot of, trips to the bank, for example, which is where they usually go now to get notarized. But yeah, that would be very helpful as we get into the more virtual world. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. All right. So what other kind of, like, I guess, if I get an injury, I have my own insurance, liability insurance and all that kind of stuff. If I get injured, at what point should I contact you, or any injury lawyer regarding anything? And I have 4 sons. They get injured all the time. And so at what point, do I need to talk to an attorney or something like that? I guess, how does that go?
Well, sure. Yeah. So, well, obviously, if the injury is your own fault, then there's not much to do about it. If you're climbing a tree, for example, and you fall out and you break your ankle,
that's usually what the case
don't
is
call a lawyer,
says.
because they're not going to do anything for you. They can't. But if the reason you're injured is because of somebody else, whether it be as the result of a car accident, if somebody's dog attacks you, which those are terrible cases, by the
Right.
way, not by way of, what they are, but just it's not it's very hard, for example, to talk with somebody who's, had half their face mauled off by a dog.
Right.
It's awful, especially when they're little kids. And we have a number of those.
Wow.
So car accidents, dog bites, often when somebody's injured on another's property, and that gets a little bit,
Fuzzy.
that's a little bit gray. But all of those scenarios would be ones where you'd want to call an attorney. Absolutely. Yeah. However big or small, because oftentimes, even the smallest case in your mind is something more substantial under the law. So I would encourage anybody to call a lawyer, however big or small they think the case is, or however good or bad they think the liability of it is, meaning whether or not they think somebody else is actually at fault. The worst thing you can do is do nothing. So you can never go wrong by calling an attorney and
seeing if you have a
asking what
case
they
or not.
think about it. Yeah.
I guess my big question also is, there's a lot of renters out there. I guess it would just come down to whose fault it was. If my son, for example, were to get hurt at the house, even though we're renters, if he's obviously done a lot of stupid stuff and got injured and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But I guess it would be if the structure of the house was not maintained or something like that caused the injury. Then at that point, then we'd have a case. But I guess we wouldn't have a case if he just fell off our trampoline or something. Is that right?
Right. Well, if he fell off your trampoline,
Right.
then that wouldn't be a case. But when you come to what we call premise liability, or where you get injured on somebody's property, it actually depends. It depends on who the property owner is. Is it a business? Is it a residential home? And who the person on the property is. Are they trespassing? Right? Because if they're a trespasser, then your duty to them is different than if you've invited them onto your property for any business purpose, or if you've given them permission to come into your home because you're throwing a party. All of these scenarios make the analysis different and will determine whether or not there's even a claim.
Right.
So yeah, but in large measure, if, for example, one of your kids is at somebody else's house,
Right.
and they're injured on a trampoline, does that mean that they're automatically liable for your kid's injuries? No. There's certain, things that have to happen, certain facts that must exist for that to be the case. But it would be unwise to not call an attorney, a lawyer, at least to talk about it and ask him what the case might be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what kind of role, I guess, if something were to happen, maybe my kids have someone over, they fall, they get hurt, whatever. I know of a case, it happened a long time ago, that I was hearing from one of my attorney friends, where, kids or grandkids are over at grandma and grandpa's house. Granddaughter sneaks into the pool area, falls in, and starts to drown. They get her out, they resuscitate her, but she's been under too long. She has, brain injuries, and she's incapacitated. So I was talking with an estate planning attorney who he has these clauses in the estate plan where normally you wouldn't be able to sue like my siblings for their part of the estate, or else I'm out of the estate for my parents or something. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But in this case in particular, the grandparents needed to be sued by the kids, by their own children, so that the insurance would pay for the rehab that this girl was going to go through, or all the special needs things that she was going to actually need, because the parents couldn't actually pay for that for their daughter, and so they needed to sue their parents, and kind of like a mutual agreement that, hey, yeah, you're going to sue us and you're going to get the insurance money because she needs this kind of care. I mean, have you seen those kind of cases before?
Yeah. So first, to that estate plan issue, where there's often a clause in whatever the document is that says you can't sue us, and if you do, then your respective share or benefit as a result of this document is null and void, that usually is the result of them taking issue with the document or the estate plan itself. Mm-hmm. Meaning, hey, if you don't agree with what I've written here and you try to make an issue of it and make everybody else's life a nightmare because of it, then I'm just gonna tell everybody in the world right now in the document, if you do that, that means that you don't get anything. That's usually what that refers to.
Right. That's exactly what it is.
It doesn't refer to precluding you making a claim outside of what that document contemplates.
Okay.
In the name of, for example, a liability claim. Yeah.
Right.
So they're kind of two separate issues. Now, to the other issue of the injury, it happens all the time where people will have a claim against, or even ultimately have to file a lawsuit against somebody to whom they're related. It happens all the time. For example, if I, for example, were driving my car and my wife was sitting next to me in the passenger seat, and I decide, whether I do so, willingly, or I just do it negligently.
Right.
I run a red light, and because of that, somebody comes and smashes my wife's side of the car. That's my fault. That's my fault, right?
Right.
She actually has a claim against me.
Interesting.
And she can, if it gets to the point where she has to sue me for whatever reason, and we can talk about that, her claim still is against me. Now, I have insurance that stands between me and her, or me and whoever else I might injure. But yes, at its most basic framework, your claim is not against an insurance company, it's against someone, and you have insurance that stands between you and that someone. And that's what the insurance does. So your claim is always against somebody, whether it be somebody you're related to, or a stranger, or a business, or a government entity, but there's usually insurance to some degree that stands between the two of you. So it doesn't really matter whether the person at fault for the accident is related to you or not. Your claim still remains against that person, and there's usually insurance that stands between you and whoever that other person is.
Right. And so what kind of, I guess, is that like liability insurance?
Yeah, so there's several different types of insurance. The three most common, especially in this realm, are liability insurance, underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage, and then medical payments coverage. So liability covers you if you're at fault for someone else's injuries. Uninsured motorist coverage covers you if somebody who hurts you doesn't have liability insurance because they're uninsured. That person is uninsured.
Right.
Then there's underinsured motorist coverage, which is when the person who causes you injury doesn't have enough liability insurance. And then there's medical payments coverage, which is usually very small amounts, but that's, it at least by definition, should be set aside and reserved to pay medical bills. Yeah.
All right. Very good.
So, some exciting news in Arizona, at least, has come July. The governor has signed into law what will now be the new minimum liability insurance. So right now in Arizona, just to drive on our roads, you have to have $15,000 in liability insurance.
Oh, wow.
Meaning if you cause somebody else's injuries, you have to at least have $15,000 worth of money insurance to pay for that person's injuries. Now, $15,000 is nothing. $25,000 is still nothing. So even though the law is changing from requiring you to have $15,000 to $25,000, it's still in everybody's best interest to have underinsured motorist coverage to make up the difference.
Right, because everyone's just going to go for the minimum.
So, for example, if you injure me and you only have a $25,000 liability policy, which is going to be the bare minimum come July, but I fracture my legs and I require 4 surgeries, then $25,000 is nowhere near gonna make up for, what injuries you caused me, right?
Right.
So I can protect myself further by asking my own insurance company and paying them a premium for underinsured motorist coverage to the token of maybe $100,000, $250,000, whatever it be, $1 million, whatever you want to choose.
Right.
So they will then make up the difference between what it is that you can give me and what my injuries are worth.
Got it. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's that he's already signed that into law, and it comes into effect July of 2020.
That's right. Yeah. So come July 2020, everybody will now be required to have $25,000 liability, not just 15.
Wow.
Yep.
All right. Well, awesome. Awesome.
So by that measure too, it shouldn't come as a surprise that the insurance companies are going to have to charge you a little bit more to afford you better coverage. But I've talked to several insurance agents, friends of mine, who have told me that the difference, or what you can expect to pay more than you are now, is maybe 10%. So if you're paying whatever it is, $100 a month for insurance, you're likely looking at a new premium of $110 a month.
Right. I know to increase coverage, it's usually dollars. It's not a whole lot of money to increase.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
All that.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Okay. So is there anything else you want to talk about?
Holy smokes. There's so much to talk about, Mike, but maybe time's the constraint today, but we can do another time for sure.
Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that your website, your phone number is in the show notes, both on the video and on the podcast, so that people know to go to necessarylegal.com, what phone numbers to go to, and also those free documents that we talked about as far as, the financial power of attorney, the medical power of attorney, and the living will, right?
That'd be great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. If you guys have any questions, reach out to Trevor with necessarylegal.com. I'll leave that in the show notes so you guys can click on that. And then if you guys have any questions, also the podcast is on MikeGloverRadio.com. We're also going to distribute this out on YouTube and a couple of other podcast outlets that we have. So thank you, Trevor, very much for your time. And
Thanks, Mike.
we'll talk again soon.
It's great catching up with you.
Yeah, absolutely.